By the 1980s, the parish had once again hit hard times. Tangipahoa was broke, and its infrastructure was falling apart. The parish was forced to reinvent its political system and elect its first parish president, Gordon Burgess.
This is the 6 p.m. edition of Eyewitness News.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm John Mahatma.
And I'm Jay Young. Our lead story today, Attorney General William Gus is threatening politicians in Tangipahoa Parish, telling them to learn how to handle their money or he's going to take over. Mike Ross has more on the ultimatum.
The Tangipahoa Parish Police Jury is broke. Most of the parish government's employees have been laid off. The National Guard has been called in to collect garbage. The police jury's money crisis started almost 2 years ago, but the parish government went completely under when the state recently cut off highway maintenance money. The state said Tangipahoa Parish officials used that money illegally. This morning, Tangipahoa Parish asked the State Bond Commission for authority to borrow $500,000 to pay off some debts.
But by gosh, a police jury as big, as fine a parish as Tangipahoa is, sitting in the heart of Louisiana, we cannot afford to have that parish in default.
They have improper.
But Attorney General William Gus accused Tangipahoa's elected leaders of squandering the taxpayers' money.
Their fiscal situation is abominable. They have failed to follow nearly every law and every business judgment dealing with the proper administration of parish government.
Gus says he's investigating possible criminal wrongdoing by parish officials. The Bond Commission turned down the loan request, and some members said they couldn't believe that none of the police jury members even bothered to show up for the hearing. But the police jury did show up for a meeting with the Attorney General this afternoon. Gus said that unless the police jury agrees to hire a state-approved fiscal officer to sort out the parish's money crisis, the state will go to court against the police jury. After the meeting, police jury members said that ultimatum took them completely by surprise. They will decide what to do about it by the end of this week. But in the meantime, the parish government will remain in limbo, and so will vital public services in Tangipahoa Parish. Mike Ross, Channel 2 Eyewitness News.
By mid-1985, the Help Our Parish people had convinced the police jury that it was time to do something, and the police jury called a special election. And I have that information here that I pulled out of our archives. In January of 1985, the police jury adopted a resolution which actually called for an election, and that was held in March of 1985. And the resolution read, the proposition, shall the Home Rule Charter and Plan of Government for Tangipahoa Parish, prepared and submitted by the duly appointed Tangipahoa Parish Charter Commission according to Article 6, Section 5 of the Constitution of Louisiana and other applicable law, be adopted, and people had a choice to vote yes or no. That was in March of 1985. I do not have the results of the election, but obviously we all know that it passed, and I don't think it passed, if my memory serves me correctly, by a very large number. I don't recall how many people initially ran for parish president, but I think the case was more like who would really want that job after many years of nothing but negative publicity. You know, who wants to take something that has nothing and try to build it up?
Well, at first I said, no way, when the HOP group had called. And I met with them, and I said, no, thank you. Well, they had prolonged, the police jury had prolonged the election. You know, it's like another year. Well, by then, the oil field was in bad shape. In fact, I had closed my company, and I brought my equipment to the farm, and I put good hay outside, put the equipment inside the barn. I could get more money for the hay than I could the equipment, as it turned out. But anyway, that was when I figured, well, I need a job, so I will run for parish president. And that was in '86.
It was interesting. When Gordon came on board, I think he had the same first reaction that I did and a lot of people that served on the parish council did. We became parish councilmen, of course, when he was elected. One night we were police jurymen, the next day we were parish councilmen. And he said basically the same thing after looking over everything, what have I got myself into? So Gordon worked very close with us, and I venture to say that probably no other council worked any closer with Gordon Burgess than we did, because you know when you don't have any money, you seem to pull together a little closer. There's not much to argue about, and you're fighting for your life. And I can remember, you know, and that's one reason I think that Gordon was able to get elected. Everybody that knew Gordon Burgess knew that he had a lot of contacts. He had contacts of people he knew in Washington, D.C., in Baton Rouge. He had been a successful oil person. And he reached out and touched a lot of people. And I remember the first time that we really got some help out of Baton Rouge, he and I rode over there and picked up a check for $100,000 from 60 Rayburn.
I had called 60 Rayburn. I was with the governor's office almost every day with Edwin Edwards, and he was trying to help us as best he could. And at that time had a few dollars that was available, and through the senator and being friends with the governor, we were able to do a few things that we could just make the payroll.
We got 6 months behind on the light bill. And I was chairman of the council at the time, and I met with Buddy Weir and Gordon Burgess, and they said, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. I said, we don't have the money. I guess just tell the power company that we don't have the money and let them do what they want to do. We don't have much choice.
And I happened to be in my hotel room one night at 10 o'clock when the news came on. I think this would have been in May or June, but it was in May or June of 1988. And man came on, lights out in Tangipahoa Parish.
And I came to the courthouse the next day, and I saw Sheriff Larison cranking a generator up in the parking lot. And I said, what you doing? He said, well, the lights are out. We got to have some power. So I went up and talked to Gordon and Buddy Weir, and Gordon had actually called the power company and says, look, we don't have the money. I don't want to get in debt any deeper. You're just going to have to turn the lights out.
Well, they had told us, that, hey, you got to come with some money. Well, we didn't have it. So the only thing we know to do, I'm going to cut the lights off. And I didn't do that by myself. I had the council supporting me on that. And and it went on about 3 or 4 days. Joetti Angelone was the chief judge. And I told him, I said, Judge, you know, we're going to cut the lights out, and it doesn't have any windows in the courtroom. And so he was, anyway, that we had to get all the prisoners, inmates, out of the courtroom and get them back to jail before we could actually pull the switch. But that's what happened.
Things was already bad, and it just led up to us having a special meeting at the Drainage Board, and we all got together. Mr. Burgess came and talked to us and told us that that things are bad and we can't pay our bills, and we're going to have to file for bankruptcy. But and it wasn't long after that the phone started ringing from people all over the country saying, hey, you can't do that.
I was there the night that Dickie Patterson walked up to the podium and said, fellas, we are now bankrupt. That's when I looked at Bruno and R.D. Watson. I said, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We're bankrupt. This is a parish government. It can't be. But then we had our meetings with Mr. Burgess, and he told us how it was. He showed us the revenue sharing. We got to see our first budgets, and it was just a utter mess.
Yeah, there's a state law. It's really interesting. Although nobody in the country, no political subdivision, had taken advantage of this Chapter 9. Chapter 9 was a federal law. Somehow, in the wisdom of the legislature years and decades ago in the state of Louisiana, they put a statute on the books that said, should a political subdivision in the state of Louisiana desire to take bankruptcy, you first must get the specific approval of the governor and the attorney general. Nobody ever knew about that statute. I didn't know about that statute until I went back, did my homework, and I said, gosh. So I go to my client and say, okay, we have to get the governor's approval and the AG's approval before we can move forward. So what happened was, Tangipahoa Parish voted to authorize the filing of Chapter 9 bankruptcy.
All right. After meeting with parish leaders for nearly an hour, Governor Buddy Roemer says he won't allow the nearly broke parish to declare bankruptcy.
The state cannot and will not accept the option of bankruptcy because what it does to the state, which is not fair to the other citizens.
The governor maintains that bankruptcy would not only destroy Tangipahoa's credit rating in the bond market, but also cause a ripple effect on the state's credit as well.
What I don't want to do is send up a signal here that the state can bail anybody out. We can't.
The governor has promised to send some of his staff members to the financially stricken parish to help them work out a budget for the remainder of the year. Voters recently turned down a tax increase which would have kept the financially strapped parish afloat. As it stands now, though, there isn't enough money to last the remainder of the year, and the parish could face a $1 million deficit next year as well.
We just do not have sufficient revenues to meet the requirements of parish government, the services that we have to give to our people, the services that they demand and expect.
The parish council is scheduled to approve what's called a bare bones budget tomorrow night, which means many parish services are likely to see cutbacks if they continue to exist at all. I'm Marvin McGraw, Channel 2 Eyewitness News Night Desk.
At that time, when we attempted to declare bankruptcy, you would think the world came to an end, because I started getting phone calls from Washington, from New York, Chicago, the school board, the attorney general, the governor said, "You can't do that." I said, "Well, we just did it." "No, you didn't." So we went back and okay, so we didn't.
We had a meeting with Governor Romer. Gordon Burgess and the council asked me to be the spokesperson for that meeting, and they were all in the room, and Governor Romer was very clear. Called me by my first name and said, "Dickie, you can't file bankruptcy," and that was kind of the end of that.
And that's when it came up with the idea of the 4-year tax, and with a 75% split to roads and bridges and a 25% split for other courthouse expenses. And Gordon was like me, said, "I never heard of a 4-year tax. You know, we can't hardly bond that or anything." And that's when he said we'd have to pay as you go. And that's where he came up with the idea as a pay as you go plan. And I told him, I said, if we don't put at least 75% into roads and bridges, and we're not going to pass it, because people really don't have an interest in the problems of the courthouse right now, or the judges or anybody else. They're just interested in getting the roads fixed. So we put that on a ballot, and it passed, and that's really what got us started.
He implemented a pay-as-you-go system that he refused to let the parish get into any more debt than it was already in. He said that if we didn't have the money in the bank, we weren't going to pay for it. We weren't going to establish a particular service. So, you know, I have to credit Gordon Burgess and to some extent the administrator that was appointed, Walter Bass again. He was the one that had set the tenure about making sure that the parish didn't go bankrupt, to make sure that the money was in the bank before a project was completed. And then Gordon stepped in, took over where Walter had established some rules of procedure, and made sure that the parish council understood exactly what they could do and couldn't do.
So what lesson can Detroit, Puerto Rico, Orange County, or any place else take away from the Tangipahoa turnaround? 3 things. Number 1, the solution has to be based on a foundation solid as a rock, like the Home Rule Charter, which cannot be changed without a vote of the people, and the ballot initiative that spelled out every penny of the 1-cent sales tax. Number 2, you need a solution that brings together all the stakeholders, dozens of them, even in some cases, people who had been at each other's throats before. And then number 3, it helps to have a great leader at the helm like Parish President Gordon Burgess.
Mr. Gordon did an excellent job of directing us on the direction we ought to go in, and he brought in some really good people. He brought in Buddy Weir. He brought in Mr. Levi Mapes, the engineer. So when you surround yourself with good people like that, and he had all of us working together.
Like I say, it's we. You could not do it by yourself. You've got to surround yourself with good people. And I think we've been very fortunate to do that, having good employees, some dedicated employees. And I recall when they didn't know that they were going to get a paycheck, didn't know that we were going to have enough money to meet the payroll, but they were there. And that means a whole lot, and I've never forgotten that.
But the people were not going to put any more confidence back in the police jury system again. They wanted somebody up there full-time in charge, parish-wide, that they could point to, which became Gordon Burgess. And I don't think that anybody in this parish could have done a better job than Gordon has since he's been up there. It's been some trying times, but he's been very dedicated to it. Did I agree with him all the time? No. But overall, I don't think that anybody could have been found that could have done a better job as parish president than Gordon Burgess did.
I guess it was 20 years ago, 20 plus years. We had an article, and I don't know, I've lost the article. We was in the top 10 counties in the U.S. as the way that we were spending our revenue.
Today, I consider Tangipahoa Parish one of the leading parishes in the state. In fact, a lot of people may not realize it, but we are 11th in size of the 64 parishes. In my business in the clerk's office, the number of voting machines for Tangipahoa Parish, we're 11th in the state. You know, we're up there pretty high. And we have a lot of business in Tangipahoa Parish, and we have a lot of good, positive things that have happened, and a lot of good, positive things that are continuing to happen.